Don't limit yourself. Don't look at something and dismiss it. If it's something that you want, if it's something that you truly believe that you are a fit for, I would say pursue it. Don't stop until somebody else tells you you can't do it. And even then, push back.
Okay, it's time to begin. Welcome everyone to the HMC networking and panel event. For those who don't know me, my name is Gabby and I am the Vice President of the HMC campus for the SSU. I want to thank you all for taking your time on a 1 p.m. on a Thursday to come to this event. For those of you who don't know, we are currently giving out for the first 25 people an Uber Eats gift card. So all you have to do is click the link in the chat to fill it out and we'll send it to you within the next 3 business days. That sounds good. And I would like to say 2 more announcements. One, I would love to thank Sheridan Alumni for partnering with us on this event and bringing in these incredible alumni to speak to us today. And second, currently at the SSU, we are having our elections for the board of directors. If you want to have an incredible leadership role on campus, head to the ssU.ca and fill out a nomination package, and you won't regret this. Alrighty, now let's start off with our event today. Today we have 4 incredible alumni from varying different programs at the HMC campus, and I would love for each of them to introduce themselves. So let's start off with Hassan.
Hi everyone, Hassan Al-Gharib here. I graduated from the Business Administration Program Marketing major in 2008, and I am currently a sales manager at Samsung Electronics Canada.
Thank you. Next up, can we have Alanna?
Hi everyone, so my name's Alanna Meyers and I graduated from the HR Management Postgraduate Certificate Program, that's a mouthful, back in 2015. Currently, I am a senior HR business partner at Molson Coors Beverage Company.
Thank you, Alanna. Next up, can we have Chris?
Hi folks, happy to be with you today. My name is Chris Alley. Graduated from, unfortunately, no business programs under my belt. Art fundamentals back in 04 and social service worker in 07. Just love Sheridan that much. I'm currently employed as a manager with Deloitte Canada in technology consulting.
And last but not least, Sylvia, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, so my name is Sylvia. I graduated from the interior decorating program in 2015. Currently I have a wedding planning and home staging business called the Petit House, and we do both. I combine my passions under the slogan of For Heart and Home, and that's what I do.
Awesome. So now just for a little agenda for the event. First, we're going to go off with some general questions that all of our panelists can answer. Then we're going to go into more specific for each of the panelists in their specific realm. And then we're going to go into breakout rooms. So you will have the chance to have a more intimate experience with each of our alumni to ask your questions that I know everyone has been dying to ask. So let's jump off with our general questions. First off, everyone here at this event is at different stages of their Sheridan experience, from their first year all the way to their last semester here. So my first question, and I'll start it off with Alanna, how was the transition from graduation into your career?
Yeah, so from my experience, I mean, if I put it into one word, I would say it was an exciting journey. But if I'm honest and using more than one word, it was challenging, focused, a large time commitment, but I don't want to be discouraged by that. There's days where you'll see job postings available to you and you'll just go, wow, I would sell my soul for that role. That rhymed. But there's other days where, you know, you may not see something that excites you, or you may not want to pursue a particular opportunity, and that's okay. And it's just really about being like knowing that you're going to expect to put quite a bit of work into application processes. You're not always going to receive that follow-up thank you for your application email, and it's not a negative reflection of you. Don't be discouraged. Keep on going. What I found extremely helpful for transitioning was leveraging the resources that Sheridan had, quite honestly. For me, the co-op component was a very positive piece to my internship and experience and forward. And it was a huge plus that put me at a competitive advantage when entering the industry. Our career advisors at Sheridan played an active role in getting my cohort specifically set up for success. You know, we did everything from resume review together, practiced interviewing skills, and also had access to an untapped market of job postings. So I know when I was at Sheridan, we had a job board that became more or less a network of past Sheridan alumni who were looking to give back to others and that shared that same experience. So I leveraged that job board when applying for my first internship at Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment at the time. So specifically, you know, I wanted to gain that hands-on experience. And then after completing my internship, I had the necessary skills and experience to transition over to Molson Coors. Again, that's more specific to my experience through the HR management postgrad program, but I just tell all grads, like, leverage those opportunities that you have available to you wherever you can.
Awesome. Hassan, how about you?
Yeah, I was actually really fortunate. I was hired by the Sheridan Student Union right out of college. So I mean, I'll always be grateful for that opportunity, and that was it just gave me such a great start to my post-secondary career. You know, I was also fortunate because I didn't actually study through the co-op stream, and I know that I did for one summer fast track a little bit, and I had a great experience studying with a co-op cohort, and hearing them speak about their experiences at various businesses in the community really seemed like an awesome way to go, and I kind of regret not going through co-op, but it's not for everyone. But from what I heard about it, I would certainly recommend it. It'll give you a leg up. I mean, you'll already have, you know, if the program's the same, at least 3 semesters worth of great experience. So, I mean, with that being said, you know, the transition for me, it was still a challenge. I mean, yes, the environment was pretty much the same, but the expectations are different. You know, when you enter the work world, you know, managers and colleagues are sometimes not as forgiving as teachers and your fellow students. But yeah, I mean, if I could instill some advice, I would just always recommend get involved as much as you can. I know it's easier said than done, certainly during COVID when we're all separated and we're not in the building together. But get involved. You know, gain some new experiences, new perspectives, and whether it's the arts, sports, politics, it doesn't matter. You're building your network, you're broadening your experiences and your perspectives. And you know, after my time at the student union, it was actually a friend and a coworker within the student union that was at Samsung that got me essentially the interview at Samsung. So, you know, the connections I made at Sheridan are really the reason I'm in the position that I'm in today. So build your network, get involved. If you have an opportunity to do co-op, do co-op.
Amazing. Chris, how about you?
So I agree wholeheartedly with a lot of what the others have said. I think in my case, as you might see from my education and my current career choice, it was less of a direct line. And I think, I don't know if it's still Sheridan's slogan, but at one point it was get creative, be creative. And I think that would be the one thing. There are so many people that I talk to who, you know, they've got this almost blinders on when it comes to, I graduated from this program, or I studied this program and I want that to have meaning. So I am going to go and find myself a career that is as closely aligned to that as possible. But really, in doing so, you're almost limiting yourself. When I graduated, I also was fortunate enough to work with the college for quite some time, work with international students, work with the Office of the Registrar. And my driver was always, I wanted to help people. And so I started to look out there and say, well, how else can I do that? Sure, my education is in arts and social work, but how else can I apply that? And I developed a passion for higher education. And I started to think, where else has an impact on higher education? I found this little company called Deloitte. They had a group of consulting that would go out to universities and colleges and engage with them. And I said, okay, sure. I don't meet the requirements on paper. I'm the farthest thing from it, but maybe I can start a conversation with them. And it was through those conversations, so taking some bold steps, going out there, putting yourself out there and saying, okay, sure, I don't meet those requirements, but that's not the only way to land a career. It's not the only way to land a job. It's not the only way to start a career. And so I would encourage you as much as possible to don't just don't limit yourself. Don't look at something and dismiss it. If it's something that you want, if it's something that you truly believe that you are a fit for, I would say pursue it. Don't stop until somebody else tells you you can't do it. And even then, push back, right? I think we sometimes get into this kind of self-defeating means, and I've talked to a lot of folks, whether they're alumni or they're looking for that next job, and they go, well, I don't think, right, and that language, it drives me up a wall. I don't think that I'm a fit. Well, if you've told yourself that, then you don't need the rest of the world to tell you it, because that's it. It's a dead issue, right? When you get out there, Hassan is absolutely right. You're going to get in there and there's a certain level of expectation. But one thing that I've found, and something that I've seen with loads of new resources, whether they're fresh out of school or coming into it as a new career, when you ask for help, you get it. I can think of very few instances where you don't. And what we see from time to time, the difference that I see, at least in our organization today, between people who end up being very successful and people who don't, are those who sit there in a silo and think, I have to prove that I am worthy of this position. And what happens is they end up going and they make mistakes. They don't clarify, they don't seek guidance, they don't seek help. They think that it's a sign of weakness. And if I could ask you to do one thing alone, is when you do finally get that job, and I know you all will, don't be that person. Go out there and ask questions. Nobody is going to judge you for it. If anything, they're going to look better at you because you can park the ego and the pride to say, look, I know what I don't know. Help me. You'll be all the better for it.
Wow. Sylvia, would you like to add in?
Yeah, so in my case, similar to Hassan, I got lucky and I got a president position for 2 years, which was a 2-year contract right after graduation. But then once that was done, I wanted to get into the event industry. So that is when the challenging part began, because it took 4 months, because what employers saw on paper was president, and they don't understand what that entails. So if I can give a piece of advice, is do not ignore a cover letter, because if they just say title and they don't know that there are transferable skills, that I did do events. So your cover letter is your opportunity to explain that. So 4 months later, I did get an event position, but during those 4 months, I also got a part-time position with a wedding planner, and I got my home staging certification, because yes, the decorating program at Sheridan was amazing, but if I knew that I wanted to become niche with home staging, then I had 4 months to really focus on that. So you really have to work towards your goal. Like from all our answers now, you could see that there is no one way to do things. You really have to leverage all your resources and not settle. And then eventually it will happen for you.
Amazing, incredible. Now, my next question for the group. I know that the job force is changing dramatically as we speak, and something that was a trend in hiring 3 years ago is now seen as something so unacceptable. With COVID-19, there's so much of employees working from home, and the need for transit is gone. And students now have to figure out how they want to really differentiate themselves in the hiring process when they get out of college. My question for all of you is, what is a skill that you believe Sheridan students should consider developing while they're still in school to enter the professional workforce at their best abilities? I'll start off with Sylvia. Let's go the other way.
Sure. So honestly, it's the willingness to ask questions, because I feel like as new grads or as during our time at Sheridan, we feel ashamed to ask questions because that shows that we don't know the answer. But at the same time, when we ask questions, or the learning curve for us to grow shortens, because then when we're asking questions, we're learning, we're growing faster. So you don't have to figure it out on your own. And there is power in collaboration. So the more you ask, the more you grow. So don't be afraid. And no one is looking at you funny, it's all in your head. So just ask the questions.
Awesome. Chris, what do you think?
Chris always takes 10 seconds to find the mute button. I don't know why. But I think a fantastic question. And if I could say one thing alone, and it may sound a bit silly, but bear with me, it is build up a degree of comfort in being yourself. And it sounds cheesy as soon as I said it, but again, bear with me here. Authenticity, being genuine, it's something that we as human beings can detect a mile away. Don't try and be who you think you need to be. Don't try and be who you think somebody else needs you to be, because I can almost assure you, you will fail. You're not going to be the way that you will have the most success, whether it's in your life, in your career, is just by being yourself. There are so many people out there that you hear about these yes people, right? I mean, I'm working in the epitome of the corporate world, and I see them all the time. And they try and reflect only what they think the person they're talking to wants to hear. That has so little value than if they were able to be comfortable being themselves, to bring forward their own thoughts, their own questions, their own ideas. Absolutely, there's a time and place for it. You have to temper that with knowing when and where, right? I'm a pretty open person about who I am. And I find ways every day to bring that with me to work. And I have found it lets me be comfortable. It helps the people around me be comfortable, and it helps us all as an organization, whatever the task is that we're doing, be successful. Because it's so much more effort to try and be somebody else, right? It's a mask that you have to remember to put on every day. And if you forget to put it on that day, you're then in your head going, oh, geez, I let somebody see the real me. Don't be afraid of that.
You know what? I completely agree with you. I think especially now there's this new phenomenon of the imposter syndrome, and it's going around dramatically. And we got to let that go. Alanna, what do you think?
And it took me 10 seconds to finally unmute again as well. So for me, in my experience and in my particular line of work, I feel that the ability to go in and shift your thinking to having what we call a growth mindset is something that can go a very long way in everything that we do. So when I say breaking it down a little bit further, what a growth mindset most simply is our ability to change how we approach tasks and things that we do in a day-to-day workspace. So, how we approach tasks is entirely up to us. And if we approach with a growth mindset, it's really about thriving and, thriving through challenge, using experience, both positive and negative, as a springboard, for growth and opportunity. So the ability to acknowledge and embrace mistakes without blaming the situation at hand is something it just goes such a long way. So an example would be, oh, I didn't get that job because the interviewer was terrible, or, I didn't ace that test because my teacher is awful and taught me nothing. It's when you're able to shift that perspective and accept, failures or flaws as what they are, own them, take control of changing outcomes in the future, it puts you in the driver's seat for, the ability to control, not only in your careers, but in everything that you do. And I think that's something that I've learned and developed over the past few years. Wasn't necessarily a space I played into maybe back in my school days, but I think it's a fundamental shift in thinking that helps, you lead further for a better future and take ownership and extreme ownership of the situation and what you got to do to hit the ground running. So that would be my take there.
Amen to that. I know, especially in some of the BBA programs, there's in our intro to CLP, one of the biggest things that we learn is to inhabit a growth mindset. So I'm glad that you reiterated the importance of it. Hassan, what do you think?
Great points. I mean, I can't disagree with anyone or any of those points. And I would have to say one of the soft skills that I've realized is crucial. I think just to overall success as a student, as a person, as someone entering the workforce is having a sense of urgency. And I think that it does touch on what was just said about, a growth mindset. And there's that saying about success, that success is moving from one failure to another without the loss of enthusiasm. So I think have that sense of urgency to keep going, look past the failures. There's another great saying that I like. If you've waited till it's perfect, you've waited too long. Just go. The time is now. If it's a job, if it's an assignment, if it's a project, if it's painting that room that you haven't, that you've been putting off, and people recognize that. Having that sense of urgency, it's not something that can be taught. It's something that you as an individual need to work on and build, and it takes time. So don't be too hard on yourself. Self-improvement, self-development is a lifelong journey. But that sense of urgency piece is something that I really wish someone, years ago, just sort of sat me down and said, you got to do things and you got to do things quickly, because there's a lot of people working really hard to get what you want or achieve those goals that they set out to do. And get moving.
That's incredible. Thank you, panelists, for all of those great skills. I know everyone in attendance is probably going to integrate it now into their lifestyle. Now on to some more specific questions for our panelists. I'm going to start off with Chris. As you mentioned before, you have been in a multitude of programs before you got to where you are today. And I know for a lot of people, switching between programs and even getting to your final destination is kind of daunting, and it can be kind of mentally jarring. What is some advice that you have for some students unsure if their program is where they want to end up?
That's a really good question, Gabby. For me, I mean, I'm human after all, and every time that I was thinking about changing career, every time that I was thinking about changing program, even before I made that decision, we talk about these things, we talk about it with our friends, with our families, and for them, they will give you their opinions very freely, sometimes a little too freely. And they, when I wanted to leave a public sector job with a pension and security and go to the corporate world, my parents thought I was completely nuts. They said, like, you've got to be crazy. That's no, why would you do that? And what I realized was what allowed me to go forward with it was what I was pursuing. I wasn't pursuing a job. When I was studying, I was not pursuing a job. When I was going into the market, I wasn't pursuing a job. I was pursuing, and this may not apply to all careers, so I will apologize in advance. but I was pursuing, in a very real way, an ideal. I wanted to make an impact on the world, an idea of the type of impact that I wanted to do. And wherever I saw a path forward for myself to do that, that was where I went. And when I had those doubts, when I had those nerves, that anxiety, all I needed to do was fact check myself against that ideal. Will this allow me to do the thing that I would like to do? If yes, let's do it. Have faith in yourself. Have faith that this is the thing that you want to do. Now, if you think for a second, Chris, that this is something that you don't want to do, then, probably not a good idea, right? And so, and again, this is just my method. I believe that there are others who should pursue a title or a role, or maybe even a compensation level, because that is maybe that's the means to get to that ideal. But if I can encourage one thing alone, is ask yourself, if you don't already know what that ideal is, take some time and figure that out. What is it? What is it? Not why do you want the promotion? What is it that getting that promotion? What is it that getting that job? What is it that getting that title? What is it that going into that program will do for you versus that ideal? God, that sounds cheesy. I'm so sorry, folks.
Cheese is great. What are you talking about? But that was fantastic. My next question is for Sylvia. Like you said in the beginning, before you began to really work professionally in the interior decorating industry, you had the position for 2 years as the SSU president. And now you own your own company. So how has a position like the president of the SSU prepared you for running your own business?
Okay, so I think number one is like getting involved on campus, even before the president position, really shaped my personality. So if any of you can do one thing during your time at Sheridan, is to get involved, because without that experience, my personality would not be the same. I was an international student, very shy, not independent whatsoever, and I threw myself into that. And that really, I don't think I could start a business if I didn't have that position. So I think I learned 3 main things, because otherwise I'm going to bore you all. I think the number one thing is leadership, of course. I mean, working with a team towards a common goal, that's a skill that you will take with you no matter what field you're in. Working at SSU as well meant that I dabbled into a whole different or diverse departments, from working with HR to hire people and what that process looks like, to understanding what goes into managing food operations, a whole other thing, and then throwing campus events for 20,000 students. So I think even though those things are very diverse, there was always a common thread, which is that there is power in collaboration, that teamwork is crucial, that there is no one person that can do it all. And so number one, that's that. And I think the second thing is to delegate, because as president, things did get busy. And I had to remind myself that I have amazing VPs, I have a team of full-time staff who are experts in what they do, and to use those resources. So when it came to my business, of course, when you start a business, it's like your little baby. It's your vision, you're very protective over how people perceive it, what it looks like. So I had to remind myself that, Sylvia, you're a wedding planner, yes, a home stager, yes, but you are not a website designer. So delegate that task to other people and communicate properly, explain your vision, and trust that they will bring it to life, and they did. So I think, yeah, leadership, delegation, and teamwork are 3 things that people throw around, very common, but when it comes to actually applying it, they don't always do that. So my experience at SSU really, really taught me how to actually apply those things.
That's incredible. I could tell you personally myself, and some people at the SSU can attest to this, I'm really bad at delegating tasks. So I feel you on that.
Great.
And now for my next question for Hassan. Hassan, you are currently probably this month about to hit your 11-year anniversary with Samsung. And you've seen the technology industry grow from being a marketing consultant up to the territory sales manager. I hope I got the role correctly. But how do you feel within the past 10, 11 years that marketing and selling technology has shifted? And where do you think it's going to go?
Yeah, it's I think this is sort of related to the last question and my last point about having a sense of urgency. Things are changing at such a rapid pace, and I've been really fortunate to be at a company that's really been at the center of a lot of that change. Samsung manufactures and sells all of the tools we use, from cell phones to TVs to home appliances, which is the division that I'm lucky to work in. Things have changed tremendously, certainly over the last 10 years, but especially over the last year. I would argue that in the last year, we've seen more change than we have in the last 10 years. The online trend is undeniable. Everything is moving online. Home appliances specifically is an industry that was always traditionally more brick and mortar. You had to go into a store and touch and feel the fridge or the washing machine or whatever it is you're looking to buy. And this is, a lot of industries. COVID has shown us that, customers are willing to make major purchases online, and it's really accelerated that rate of change. I would argue a decade. We've done basically 10 years worth of growth in a year. So everything is moving online. We're seeing a lot less, from a marketing perspective, you're seeing a lot less of that outdoor advertising, certainly. Not as many people traveling, commuting. That's shifting online. Targeted advertising, social media is, I would argue the number one place that we all get our information, good and bad. There's pluses and minuses to that. So I mean, the shift online and further to that, it's mobile. Everything is basically accessible, in the palm of our hands. Our smartphones are very much, to many, our lifelines, to information, to work, to social interaction, to entertainment. And I've been joking for the last little while / complaining that, for fun, I'm looking at a screen. For work, I'm looking at a screen. To communicate with friends and family, I'm looking at a screen. But that's kind of the way things are right now. And then, looking forward, we hear a lot about AI. We hear a lot about automation and, computers and more specifically the software, and the social networks that have been collecting and aggregating all of this data over the last decade or so. I mean, it's time to flip the switch, and now the AI is starting to take over. It's starting to make decisions for companies and for individuals, of where they put their resources, on small and large scale. So things are moving really quickly. It's really hard to say where things are going for sure. But yeah, that's just a little bit of insight.
Thank you. And I really appreciate how, again, you're telling us through a screen how it's going great. And I appreciate that. And finally, our last question before we head into the breakout rooms is for Alanna. Alanna, for a lot of students, especially in the business industries, after graduation, one of the biggest goals everybody wants to have is a corporate job. And you've been able to have sort of two very big companies under your roster. And my question to you is, how can new graduates stand out in the hiring process to get high corporate jobs like your own?
Absolutely. So I can speak to my experience in that, I've said it earlier in this session that I found so much value in our co-op internship program that I had access to through my program. But with that being said, I always encourage, new grads is just don't be afraid to pursue an opportunity that may feel, entry level in nature. But I say that as, at the same time, never sell yourself short. It goes back to what Chris said. So believe in yourself, put your best foot forward. Don't be discouraged by the process. And one thing that I found, to be exceptionally helpful as well at my at my time in my career is leverage your network, build that network around you, because you'll never know when you need to tap into it. Everyone that, your immediate friends group or your family should know exactly what you're pursuing and what your interests are in terms of employment, so that it's an easy, natural conversation as it comes up with people around you. Another thing I did is I considered volunteer opportunities to help gain valuable hands-on experience. So before I came to Molson, I had worked part-time retail roles. I was helping out with small organizations, but something that really helped stand out from an HR perspective in my field was those unpaid experiences that I gained as well. So, I would volunteer a few hours a week where I could with certain organizations just to build additional experience that was very specific to what I was looking to pursue in the future. So volunteer organizations appreciate the work that you do more than you can even imagine. Organizations who are hiring can appreciate that experience too. So if you have the opportunity to volunteer, I absolutely encourage it. Another thing for me that I've noticed, and this is actually kind of a helpful trick and tip, and I'll talk a little bit more about it, is don't be afraid of LinkedIn. It is one of the most helpful tools to aid in your company research and job search process. Leverage LinkedIn the right way, find opportunities of interest, connect with people who are involved in the processes for decision making, or who can share additional insight with you. We spend so much time at work, and we need to love what we do and really gain that inside perspective on organizations. So it's important to kind of approach the job search process in a few different ways. So depending on what's best for you, what I found is an active way to search for jobs was first and foremost to identify organizations that you would love to work for. Be sure why you're clear on why you want to work for that company. So for me, I had a preference for CPG, so consumer packaged goods, or organizations that created positive experience for people like MLSE, which their vision was, bringing the world to its feet and sharing experiences across diverse populations. And that was something that was really encouraging to me. So, bonus points, in my perspective, bonus points for companies that had projected growth in Canada, things like that, but just really identify what those specific interests are that you have, because work is just such a huge component of it. Engage with people inside the organization, tap into past interns, talk to people who are at entry-level roles in the organization and get to know their perspective and hear about their experience. Set up job alerts on company sites. Another tip for messaging people on LinkedIn, typically LinkedIn restricts access for you to connect with people unless you're already friends with them. So one tip that I found early on was, if there's somebody that you're looking to connect with, but you don't have them as a connection just yet, review their profile, find a shared program, a group that they're involved in, go to that group, find them on the members page, and you can actually message them directly there if you're looking to tap into, again, someone you're not connected with. It sounds confusing. Google will probably explain it a little bit better, but it's a really helpful way to get in there as well. And then, another process is things can be a little bit more passive. You can set up job alerts for specific roles, industries, companies that you're interested in, and this can all be leveraged through LinkedIn. Lastly, one other piece that I just want to encourage in this new world of COVID, interview processes look and feel different these days, and that's okay. We're using video interviewing where, candidates are actually given the question ahead of time and asked to record their responses. So looking at the job description, preparing for those processes are all things that go a really long way. And I encourage people to, spend some of that time in the preparatory stage in helping you gain that experience to help you move on into the corporate world where you wish to be.
Can you do like a YouTube channel for all of this?
I've got more where they've come from. Yeah, where that came from.
I would pay for this content.
No.
Free. Alrighty, everybody. Now that we've had this done, now it's time for our breakout rooms. We have, with our alumni today, we have 4 moderators who are going to help to facilitate the conversations. And it's going to be put into 4 different rooms. Room number 1 is going to be with Hassan. Room number 2 is going to be with Chris. room number 3 is going to be with Sylvia, and room number 4 is going to be with Alanna. You're going to have you're going to have 5 minutes with between each round, and there's going to be 3 rounds of breakout rooms. So yeah, let's jump into it.